I'm here at the happiest place on earth with none other than Mr. Bob Penfield here, a man who knows this park like the back of his hand. And Bob, you worked here for quite a while, right?
Well, I worked here a total of 42 years, and I started way back 4 days before the park opened, and worked in various areas, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. But retired here about 20 years ago.
And during that time, did you have any particular roles that you have as favorites that stick out?
Well, I started as a ride operator. I was going to college, and it was really in my mind. Now, keep in mind that a very naive type person in those days. I mean, nowadays all these young fellows or young people know everything that's going on. And so I started out here really wanting a part-time job because I was wanting to be a forest ranger. I grew up in Iowa and spent a lot of time out in the woods and whatnot, and I love the outdoors. And so I worked here this summer as a ride operator and then as a foreman. And then I would go to school. I went to school that fall, and I'd get off every afternoon around 2 o'clock. I took early classes, and the park was open until 10 o'clock. So then I'd run out here, and I pretty well got a full shift in all the time. So I was pretty much working 40 hours all the time. Later on, I moved into supervision and moved all around the park and the various lands and attractions. Worked on all the attractions as a foreman. Then in 1958, I became a permanent supervisor. A little later on, in 63, well, in 1960, I worked up at the Squaw Valley for the 8th Winter Olympic Games, in which the Olympic Organizing Committee wanted Disney to do the pageantry of the opening and closing ceremonies. In 64, 65, I worked at the New York World's Fair on the Small World Pavilion, and which is sponsored by Pepsi-Cola. And then Disney also had the General Electric Carousel Progress and the operating system of the Ford Pavilion, and then of course Mr. Lincoln at the Illinois Pavilion. In the winter of 66, 67, I moved from operations over to the facilities division and worked at a training program in custodial for about a year and a half. Then I went over into maintenance services and then into area supervision as a superintendent, and then eventually finished my career in contract administration, which became project management. In 71, I went down to Walt Disney World and worked for 3 months helping open it, and that was a very trying job. I was there for 3 months, and the heat and humidity just about kills you. And I'm from Iowa, and I know heat and humidity, but heat and humidity goes up and down, in the Midwest. Florida, it goes up and stays there, and that was a tough job, and it was it was a miracle almost that we got the place open in time. Then later on in 82, for 82 and 83, I worked at Tokyo Disneyland. Eventually, after so many years, 42 years, I got just tired of working. Working a lot of graveyard because that's when all the work at Disneyland is done. So I decided to hang it up then. Right behind us here, we were filming. I had a big kind of retirement party, and my window on Main Street is right there, or as I call it, the window off Main Street. I was never, one of the big cogs in the wheel here, but I just happened to be the last original Disneylander to retire. About that time, I made a decision that was good and bad. I said, well, I'm going to write a book about Disneyland. So I put it off for almost, 17 years. then eventually I started writing it, and I had a lot of help from my publisher, editor, and published that book. It's called The Last Original Disneylander. It's on Amazon, and then I sell it locally here once in a while. But all the profits go to charities. Then I got very involved with the Marceline Hometown Disney Museum in the little town of Marceline in northern Missouri. And Walt grew up there for 4 or 5 years, and that was one of his favorite recollections of his boyhood, and kind of based a lot of his dreams about what he wanted to do eventually. And then a lot of it you see here in the park in a roundabout way.
So how exactly did you start out here in the very beginning? How did it start?
Well, I was looking for a part-time job for the summer, and this was in 1955, of course. And I came out here with a friend of mine, and we looked at a couple other places, and we came out here and thought we could. We walked into personnel, and or casting as it's known now, and put in our applications, and my buddy Ray Vandy Walker happened to know the secretary, and so we left, and she went back and told the personnel manager that, hey, there's a couple of guys that are here, they're really nice guys, you ought to hire them. And he said, go get them. And so she came out in the parking lot and got us, and that's how we got our job. But, you know, like I said, it was just going to be a part-time job for the summer. And it just, you know, one thing ran into another.
Here you are.
I went to college for a couple of years and didn't finish my degree then. And it was totally different than my major. And later on, when I moved into facilities, I went back to college and I got my degree in construction maintenance management. And that helped with a lot of training. And although, you know, I learned a lot on the job. A lot of stuff I didn't know about, but I learned a lot on the job. And I really like that. The operations is good. I moved around the park, got to work all the attractions, seen a lot of people. Probably the one thing I didn't ever like about operations, operating the rides and whatnot, was the crowd control, working crowd control. Like when I was on Main Street, which was my first supervisor job, you know, you do a lot of crowd control because of the parades and everything, and it's a lot more organized now. But then again, now it's a lot more crowded, and so it's tough. I mean, you're constantly, people want to get a better seat, jock in and whatnot. But that was one thing I never did like. My favorite area of the park is Snow White Grotto. I really like that. That's my favorite character, is Snow White. And I like to say, she came out in 1937 and I was born in 1937. So I always say that she's the same age as I am, she just looks a lot better. So in operations, moving over into facilities got me into a lot of different areas that I could never get into when I was in operation. So I've basically been everywhere in the park. I mean, you name it, any little nook and cranny, top of the Matterhorn, top of the Space Mountain, whatever, I've been there.
Do you have an absolute favorite memory of your time here?
Well, when I retired, which was right here at Coach Corner, Coca-Cola Corner, being the last person to retire from Disneyland of the original people, publicity wanted to do a lot of it. There wasn't really anything else going on that year, and publicity wanted to really do it.
Finally, what best piece of advice do you have for anybody either starting here at the parks or just in a hospitality
well,
in general?
Of course, it all depends upon what you're going into. Your interest is Imagineering and whatnot. So I would say number one is read everything you can about Disney and Disneyland and the Disney resorts, and Walt Disney World, whatever. You're going to glean information no matter what. The other thing is eventually get into their training programs. And they have a lot of things. I'm not really cognizant of what all that is. Pretty much out of the picture after 20 years. But I would say that.
So it's most important to just learn about
and
it.
that's one of the things that maybe I'd like to see more of the young people here at Disneyland is know more about Walt Disney and what he was like. Then I think they would enjoy this, working at the park even more.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Bob. It's a
Well,
pleasure
you're
to
welcome,
interview you.
Lane, and good luck.
Thank you.
One of these days I'll be reading about you.
We'll see. Thank you.